In Cavan, there was a great fire. Judge McCarthy was sent to inquire. It would be a shame if the nuns were to blame, so it had to be caused by a wire. The Industrial Schools Act of 1868 established industrial schools, or Scoilna Saothar, to care for neglected, orphaned, and abandoned children. Catholic and Protestant children had to be committed to separate schools to prevent proselytization or conversion. 71 such schools in Ireland held 7,998 children by the end of the 19th century. It is impossible to overstate how absolutely miserable these places were. If you want a deep dive into that, please pick up Children of the Poor Clares, The Collusion Between State and Church That Betrayed Thousands of Children in Ireland's Industrial Schools by Mavis Arnold and Heather Lasky. It's a fantastic book, a very important book. It's a very heavy book. We're not going to do a dive into all of that. We'd be here all day. Instead, I'm going to focus on one single incident. The Order of St. Clare, better known as the Poor Clares, are a closed order of nuns. They are completely separated from mainstream society and prioritize worship, prayer, and contemplation over community outreach or economic activities. Once you're in, it's very unlikely you'll ever get out. They are not the only closed order. There's also the Benedictines, the Cistercians, Augustinians, and many more. In 1861, this order founded a convent in Cavan town. At the time, orphan children most likely would not receive any sort of training or education, and the Industrial Schools Act was, at the very least, an attempt at giving these kids a better life. And in 1868, the Poor Clares opened the St. Joseph's Orphanage and Industrial School in Cavan town. This school was little better than a prison. It's important to bear in mind that parents very rarely sent their children to industrial schools because they wanted to. They would either be ordered by a court, or they had no choice. At the time, child support payments were given to religious orders, not the parents. Many poor people had to choose between letting their children starve or giving them to an industrial school where they were told these children would be fed and educated. Catherine Graham, who lived in this Cavan orphanage, describes scavenging for food in the bins and children constantly crowding around the vents in the drying room for warmth. The orphanage was a cruel place. We were constantly cold and hungry, and our humiliation was sometimes compounded by townsfolk who thought we were beneath them, and threw stones and harsh words at us when they got the chance. There are many similar accounts from schools and orphanages all over the country. This was by no means the only or even the worst school. In fact, this orphanage was repeatedly described as one of the good schools by the medical inspector during the inquiry that would follow. On the night of the 23rd of February, 1943, a fire started in the laundry section and burned away merrily until it was finally noticed around 2 a.m. Some people on Main Street noticed the smoke and rushed to the orphanage to raise the alarm and offer help if needed. Rosemary Caffey, one of the girls living there, finally allowed them to enter the building, but they were unable to find any of the other girls, because all the girls had already been gathered and put in a single dormitory to wait for help. Not taken out of the building, not gathered in a courtyard or somewhere safe, all kept inside the burning building in a single room. These girls could have been saved at this point. It would have been easy. Just walk them out the door. Simplicity itself, just to say, hey, doors are open, go outside. Instead, the nuns asked the town people to put out the fire and allow the girls to remain in the dormitory for their own modesty, because the girls were clad only in their bedclothes. They would say the rosary for protection. 2 men, John Kennedy and John McNally, entered the laundry to try to put out the fire. McNally almost died, but was dragged out by Kennedy. By this point, the fire was too powerful to be put out. By the time they established this, it was too late for the girls to get out. The fire brigade wouldn't arrive on scene until 40 minutes after the alarm was raised. The machine for delivering water was a carton hose pipe, which may have been faulty. Their ladders weren't even long enough to reach the windows. An architect testified at the inquiry that, as it was an industrial school, the fire escape was not placed according to regular standards for ease of escape. Not that that would have mattered, because the fire escapes were locked. 15 minutes had passed between the alarm being raised and the realization that the fire was too powerful to fight. 15 minutes where these girls could have been rescued. Instead, the rosary droned on. 3 of the girls managed to escape by jumping out the window. Others tried, but were too scared. By now, Matty Hand, a local electrician, had brought his own ladder, which was long enough to reach the windows. 5 more girls were saved by Louis Blessing using this ladder. 1 escaped by slipping out before the fire got too bad. The last survivor escaped by climbing out onto a shed and taking a short ladder down. The rest were left to burn. Patrick Doyle was a 19-year-old soldier stationed in Cavan barracks when he got the call to attend the scene. In a 2018 interview, he described what he saw. The rubble was like dirty clay. As we mooched through, I actually came across a head. The head was nearly the size of a football, so I presume it was one of the elder girls. I picked it up and put it on quilts in the yard. I came across things that I thought were branches. It might have been a person's arm or leg. I've never forgotten it. The terror they must have gone through on that night. None of the nuns died. Not one. The dead have names. Bernadette Serridge, 5. Bridget and Mary Galligan, 17 and 18. Dorothy Daly, 7. Elizabeth Heapy, 4. Ellen and Harriet Payne, 8 and 11. Ellen McHugh, 15. Ellen Morgan, 10. Frances and Kathleen Kiley, 9 and 12. Josephine and Mary Carroll, 10 and 12. Josephine and Mona Cassidy, 15 and 11. Catherine and Margaret Chambers, 9 and 7. Kathleen Riley, 14. Margaret and Mary Lynch, 10 and 15. Mary and Nora Barrett, 12. Mary Brady, 7. Mary Elizabeth and Susan McKiernan, 16 and 14. Mary Harrison, 15. Mary Hughes, 15. Mary Ivers, 12. Mary Kelly, 10. Mary Lowry, 17. Mary O'Hara, 7. Mary Roach, 6. Philomena Reagan, 9. Rose Wright, 11. Teresa White, 6. Mary Maggie Smith, 80, employed as a cook in the orphanage. These children did nothing wrong, but they were abandoned. Thousands like them were. Cast aside by society, ignored, spat on, demeaned, and insulted. They were left to die.